The elevator stopped and her heart raced. The cold, distant man showed a smile no one had ever seen before. Between darkness and silence, something unexpected was born. Get ready, because this romance will stir your emotions. Subscribe to the channel, like, and comment where you're watching from. A broken elevator. Two worlds colliding. When power meets passion, not even steel can contain what is born in the shadows. Her heart was already racing since she hurried through the reception, balancing her purse on her arm and her thoughts in her head. With each step, she reminded herself that she needed to maintain composure at work and especially in front of the man who commanded the entire company with the coldness of someone who never seemed to be shaken. When she managed to hold the elevator door at the last moment, breathless, she raised her eyes, and her heart raced even more. There he was, the millionaire boss, the man with the severe expression and impeccable suits. The same one who was rarely seen smiling and whom many called the ice statue. He merely nodded, almost as if he were looking at an unimportant report. She tried to hide her anxiety, but felt the air grow heavy. The silence inside the metal cabin seemed more suffocating than any board meeting. Then it happened. The elevator gave a sharp jolt, the lights flickered, and suddenly everything stopped. The space plunged into darkness. "Damn," she muttered, desperately pressing all the buttons. "That won't help." His calm, deep voice echoed in the dark. The serene tone almost made her explode with nervousness. But before she could think of anything else, a new jolt shook the cabin. Panic took over, and her instincts were faster than reason. She grabbed the first solid object she found. It was him. More precisely, the firm arm that seemed sculpted in stone. She let go instantly, blushing to her ears. I didn't mean..." An awkward silence fell over them, until it was broken by something unimaginable. Laughter. Not a polite laugh, but a sincere chuckle that filled the dark space. Sarah Thompson gazed at her reflection in the women's bathroom mirror on the 30th floor. The image she saw was far from the confidence she tried to project. Her brown eyes betrayed the accumulated fatigue of sleepless nights. Marketing reports revised to exhaustion. 3 years of full dedication to that company. Just one more day, she whispered to herself, adjusting her black pencil skirt and smoothing her perfectly pressed blazer. At 28, Sarah was known in the marketing department of Blackwood Construction as the tireless perfectionist. Her talent with digital strategies had put luxury real estate projects on the sales map, even during the economic crisis. But few knew that behind that competence was a woman who desperately needed that job. Her phone vibrated. It was her grandmother, Nana Rose, the only person in the world who truly cared about her. "My dear, did you have breakfast? Don't forget the blood pressure medicine I set aside. Love you," Sarah smiled. Nana Rose, at 75, still worried as if she were a child. Since her parents had died in an accident when she was 16, her grandmother had been her safe harbor, her family. And now, with health problems piling up, it was Sarah who needed to be the safe harbor for the elderly woman. A new sales report awaited the young executive on her desk, and a presentation for the board in the afternoon. If she could impress them, perhaps she would finally receive the promotion she had been waiting for. The salary increase would mean she could pay for the urgent private cardiac treatment her grandmother needed. Meanwhile, on the top floor of the glass and steel building that stood out in the New York skyline, James Blackwood stared at the city through a glass panel that covered the entire wall of his office. At 35, he was the man who had inherited his father's real estate empire, William Blackwood, and transformed it into something even greater. His dark gray Italian suit contrasted with the light blue shirt buttoned up to the neck. The platinum watch on his left wrist had been a gift he had given himself when he closed his first $1 billion in business. A reminder that time was the only luxury that money couldn't buy back. "The third quarter numbers, sir," announced his secretary, placing a folder on the tempered glass desk. James didn't turn around. He continued to observe the movement of the city below, tiny people running like ants in an organized anthill, each in their predetermined function. "Leave it there. And let the board know I need to postpone the 3 o'clock meeting. I have an unavoidable commitment." The lie came out easily. The only commitment he had was with his own solitude. For years, he hadn't been able to sleep more than 4 hours a night. The doctor called it chronic insomnia. He preferred to call it a family curse. His father had never slept well either, working until dawn, demanding perfection, never satisfied with the results. The secretary left silently, as everyone did when they were near him. James knew the reputation he cultivated. The Ice Prince, the statue, the robot. The nicknames varied, but they all converged on the same point: his coldness and emotional distance. And he preferred it that way. Closeness meant vulnerability. and vulnerability was incompatible with the business world. On his desk, a photo in a silver frame, his mother, Elizabeth Blackwood, smiling on a beach, years before succumbing to cancer when he was only 12 years old. It was the last time James allowed himself to cry. After that, he had become the son his father wanted, calculating, relentless, invulnerable, a true Blackwood. His cell phone rang. It was his father. "James, I'm looking at the numbers for the Victoria project. What happened to that digital marketing campaign we approved? The sales aren't corresponding, without even a hello or how are you? Typical of William Blackwood. I'm reviewing it today. Dad, I'll talk to the responsible team. I don't want talk. I want results. Remember that you still need to prove to the board that you deserve that chair. Being my son is no guarantee of anything." The call ended as abruptly as it had begun. James felt his jaw tense. At 35, a billionaire, commanding an empire, and he still felt like a teenager trying to impress his father. He looked at his watch. He needed to go down to the marketing department and understand what was happening with the Victoria project. He couldn't fail. Not again. When the elevator arrived, James had already recomposed his expression of indifference. He entered the empty cabin and pressed the button for the 30th floor, where marketing was located. As the doors were closing, a feminine hand interrupted the sensor, making them reopen. It was then that Sarah Thompson entered, breathless, carrying a folder full of documents and a purse that seemed too heavy for her slender body. Their eyes met for a second, before she quickly looked down at the floor, as if she had been caught in the act of some crime. James vaguely recognized her. She was one of the marketing analysts, he believed. He had the impression he had already seen her name on some impressive reports, but they had never been formally introduced. Not that it mattered. She was just another cog in the system. The elevator began its descent. The silence was dense, almost palpable. Sarah felt tiny in that confined space, as if the air itself refused to enter her lungs. She gripped the strap of her purse so tightly that her knuckles were white. It was the first time she had been alone with the company's CEO, the man who could define her future with a single word. She was about to gather the courage to say something, anything, when she felt the violent jolt. The lights flickered and suddenly everything went dark. The elevator had stopped. Sarah blinked repeatedly, trying to get used to the sudden darkness. Her heart hammered against her chest as if it wanted to escape the ribcage. The smell of masculine cologne, sandalwood, and something citrusy filled the confined space, mixing with her own floral scent. She was trapped in an elevator with James Blackwood, the most intimidating man she had ever met. "I think there was a power outage." His voice sounded surprisingly calm, as if he were commenting on the weather. Sarah pressed the emergency button repeatedly, in panic. "That won't help if the power has been completely cut off," he observed, and she could almost feel the ironic smile in his voice, even without seeing him. Before she could respond, a new jolt shook the elevator, making it oscillate for a few seconds. It was pure instinct. Sarah grabbed the first support she found in the darkness. She only realized it was James's arm when she felt the firmness of the muscle under the expensive fabric of the suit. She released it immediately, as if she had touched fire. "I'm sorry, she stammered, silently grateful for the darkness that concealed her flaming face. To her complete surprise, an unexpected sound filled the small space. A laugh. James Blackwood was laughing. Not a polite or contained laugh, but a genuine and spontaneous chuckle that seemed to come from deep in his chest. "Your expression must have been priceless," he said, still trying to contain his laughter. Sarah closed her eyes, wishing the elevator floor would open and swallow her. "Can we please pretend this didn't happen?" she implored, her voice coming out higher than intended. "Hardly," he replied, and there was something in his tone that she had never heard before. Something almost seductive? The silence returned, but now charged with a different tension. James lit up his cell phone screen, partially illuminating the small space. The bluish light highlighted the contours of his angular face, the defined jaw, the dark eyes that now seemed less cold. Sarah was aware that her own face was as red as a tomato, her dark brown hair partially disheveled from the earlier rush. "I thought it was your briefcase, I swear," she tried to explain, pointing to the leather briefcase beside him. His eyes gleamed with amusement. "Interesting. Important documents usually stay in curious regions," he said seriously. But there was a trace of humor in his voice that she had never imagined possible. Sarah buried her face in her hands. "Why did this have to happen to me?" James leaned slightly in her direction. The movement made his cologne even more present, enveloping her like a winter breeze. Of all the employees in the company, his voice sounded lower, almost a whisper. "I'm grateful it happened with you. Before Sarah could process the meaning of those words, a new jolt shook the elevator. This time, she held his arm again, but didn't release it immediately. To her surprise, James covered her hand with his thumb making a gentle circular movement over her skin. "Calm down. I've been through worse situations," he murmured. The touch was electrifying. Sarah felt a shiver run up her spine. "Like having your briefcase attacked by panicking employees?" she retorted, surprising herself with the boldness. He laughed again, and the deep sound reverberated through the confined space, sending waves of heat through her body. There's a first time for everything. The atmosphere had completely changed. The air between them seemed charged with electricity, like before a storm. Sarah realized she still hadn't released his arm, and he didn't seem bothered by it. On the contrary, there was something in his posture that suggested he was enjoying the contact. Under the dim light of the cell phone, she noticed that his eyes weren't cold as they always seemed from a distance. They were intense, deep, with nuances of amber she had never noticed before. "Why do you never smile at the office?" The question escaped before she could contain it. James observed her for a long moment before answering. "Maybe because no one has ever made me laugh before." Sarah felt her stomach do a somersault. That answer, so simple and so honest, revealed more about James Blackwood than probably any interview or authorized biography. "Or maybe," he continued, still holding her hand, "because smiling doesn't match the image they expect of me." "And what image is that?" "The relentless son of William Blackwood, the ice heir, the man who has no time for frivolities like emotions." There was a bitterness in his voice that surprised her. Behind the facade of power and control, there was a man who seemed to carry an immense weight on his shoulder. "It must be difficult," she commented softly, "to live according to others' expectations." James studied her with curiosity, as if he were seeing her for the first time. "And you, Sarah Thompson? Do you also live to meet expectations?" The fact that he knew her full name surprised her. She didn't think she was on the CEO's radar. "How? Do you know my name?" A slight, almost imperceptible smile appeared on his face. "I read your report on digital strategies for the Victoria Project. It was impressive." Sarah felt her face heat up again. That report had been her most ambitious project, and knowing that he had not only read it, but considered it impressive, accelerated her heart. "Thank you. I worked hard on it. I could tell. There's passion in those pages. It's rare to find that in corporate reports." A new silence was established, but this time it was comfortable, almost complicit. The cell phone light began to dim, and soon they would be in darkness again. "How long do you think we'll be stuck here?" she asked. "I don't know." His voice sounded closer. "But I'm discovering that I might not care as much as I should." Sarah swallowed hard. What was happening? This man, who until minutes ago was just the unreachable and feared CEO, was flirting with her? Darkness enveloped them completely when the cell phone screen went off. But somehow Sarah felt less scared now. There was something in his presence, in his deep voice, in the gentle touch, that calmed her and, simultaneously, lit something inside her that she didn't know existed. "You know what's funny?" He broke the silence. "I've spent the last 5 years in this company seeing people every day and never really talked to anyone. Not like this. What's different about this way? It's real. No masks, no hierarchy. Without my father's shadow, or the board observing every word." Sarah felt the weight of that confession. For the first time, she glimpsed the man behind the myth, the person behind the position. "Sometimes," she risked, "we need darkness to really see." "Elevator philosophy?" There was a smile in his voice. "Sorry. My grandmother always says I talk too much when I'm nervous." "Are you nervous now?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I'm trapped in a dark elevator with the most powerful man in New York, who just praised my work and is holding my hand. Yes, I'm a little nervous." His laugh sounded again, softer this time. "You're different, Sarah Thompson. Different good or different bad?" "Definitely good. Refreshingly good." Her heart leaped. There was something in the way he pronounced her name, as if he were savoring each syllable. Suddenly, the emergency lights came on, bathing the elevator with a soft red glow. Their eyes met, and Sarah saw something in that look she had never imagined seeing: vulnerability. James released her hand slowly, as if he were reluctant to break the contact. The moment of intimacy was dissipating with the return of light, albeit weak. "Looks like they found the problem," he commented, his voice returning to the professional tone. Sarah nodded, feeling a pang of disappointment. The enchantment was breaking, but then, to her surprise, James did something completely unexpected. He took his business card from the inside pocket of his jacket, turned it over, and wrote something on the back with a silver pen. "My personal number," he explained, handing her the card. "In case you need to discuss more ideas about the Victoria project." She took the card, her fingers briefly brushing against his. Of course, the project. A complicit smile passed between them, a mutual understanding that this was just a pretext. At that moment, the elevator came back to life with a jolt, and the main lights came on, momentarily blinding them. The magic of darkness completely dissipated, but something had changed. Something fundamental and irreversible. When the doors opened on the 30th floor, Sarah hesitated. "This is my floor," James nodded. "Have a good day, Miss Thompson." The formal tone was back, but his eyes told a different story, a story that had only just begun. Sarah exited the elevator, feeling as if she had just woken from a very vivid dream. Only when the doors closed behind her, with James still inside, did she realize she was holding the card so tightly she had almost crumpled it. She carefully unfolded it and read the number written in his elegant handwriting. Below the number, a single word that made her heart race again. Tonight. The rest of the day passed in a blur for Sarah. Meetings, spreadsheets, calls, everything seemed distant, as if she were observing her professional life through a foggy glass. The only object that seemed real was the business card kept in the inside pocket of her blazer, practically burning against her chest. Tonight? That simple word haunted her. A question that carried infinite possibilities, all equally frightening and exciting. At 6:45 p.m., sitting at her desk while most colleagues had already gone home, Sarah finally found the courage. She took her cell phone and typed a message to the number on the card. "What time?" The response came almost instantly, as if he had been waiting. 8 p.m. "I'll send an address." Casual. Sarah felt her stomach churn. Was she really considering meeting James Blackwood outside the work environment? The man who could decide her professional future with a snap of his fingers? It was crazy, reckless, risky. But there was something in those moments in the elevator, something genuine that she had never seen before in anyone at the company, much less in the impenetrable CEO. "Okay," she replied, before she could change her mind. When she arrived home, she found Nana Rose watching her favorite soap opera. The elderly woman smiled when she saw her, but the smile soon turned to concern. "You're pale, dear. Did something happen?" Sarah considered telling her grandmother about the strange encounter in the elevator, about how the feared boss had shown a human side that no one knew, about how he had invited her to. To what exactly? A date? A meeting? A trap? "Nothing, Nana. Just a tough day." She forced a smile. "I'll need to go out later. Last-minute meeting with the team." The lie came out easily, leaving a bitter taste. She never lied to Nana Rose. "At this hour, that company really has no consideration." The elderly woman shook her head in disapproval. "At least have dinner before you leave." "I'm not hungry, Nana. I'll take a shower and get ready." In the shower, she let the hot water fall on her tense body, trying to process the day's events. What was she doing? Why had she accepted? And more importantly, what would she wear? After trying on practically her entire wardrobe, she opted for a simple navy blue cotton dress that reached her knees with a thin belt marking her waist. Casual, but elegant. Light makeup, loose hair, a drop of perfume on her neck. Nothing exaggerated, nothing that screamed, "I'm trying too hard." At 7:40 p.m., her cell phone vibrated with the promised address. To her surprise, it wasn't a luxury restaurant or an exclusive bar, as she expected. It was a diner in Brooklyn, a traditional neighborhood, far from the tourist spots and places she imagined someone like James would frequent. When the Uber dropped her off in front of Pete's Diner, Sarah checked the address again, certain there was some mistake. The place was simple, with formica tables, worn red vinyl benches, and a neon sign that flickered irregularly. Nothing that matched the man of Italian suits and platinum watches. She hesitated on the sidewalk, but before she could reconsider, the diner door opened, and James Blackwood came out to receive her. The transformation was impressive. Without the impeccable suit, wearing dark jeans and a blue button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, he looked years younger and infinitely more accessible. "You came," he said, and there was a trace of surprise in his voice, as if he really hadn't expected her to show up. "I confess I was surprised by the location," Sarah replied, looking at the diner. A shy, almost embarrassed smile crossed James's face. "I thought it would be neutral, away from corporate eyes." He was right. No one from Blackwood Construction would frequent a place like that. They were safe from gossip and speculation, and also, he added, holding the door for her to enter. They make the best burger in New York, a secret I keep under wraps. The diner was moderately full, with families and couples occupying some tables. 80s music played softly in the background, mixing with the buzz of conversations and the sizzle of the grill. The smell of grilled meat and French fries filled the air. James led her to a table in the back, more private. "I've been coming here since I was a teenager," he confessed, after they sat down. "It's one of the few places where I feel normal." Sarah studied his face. Under the yellowish light of the place, he seemed different from the man who commanded meetings with surgical precision. There was a softness in his features, a vulnerability that the corporate environment didn't allow him to show. "It's hard to imagine you eating a burger," she commented, trying to ease the tension. James laughed, that same rich and genuine sound she had heard in the elevator. "There are many things about me that are hard to imagine." Sarah, the way he pronounced her name, with an intimacy that didn't exist hours before, sent shivers down her spine. An elderly waiter approached, treating James like an old acquaintance. "Jimmy." "Long time no see." "The usual, Jimmy." Sarah suppressed a smile. James nodded. "For two, Pete. And that special lemonade too." When the waiter moved away, Sarah couldn't contain her curiosity. "Jimmy." A subtle blush colored his cheeks, something she had never imagined possible. "Pete has known me since I was 15. He was the only one who refused to change the way he treated me when things changed." Sarah realized there was a story there, something painful and unresolved. "What things?" James stared at his hands for a moment before answering. "When my mother died, when I stopped being just James to become the Blackwood heir." The pain in his voice was palpable, raw and unexpected. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I lost my parents too, in a car accident when I was 16. Their gazes met, and in that instant, an invisible connection formed between them. The mutual recognition of a pain that only someone who had felt it could understand. Is that why you're so determined?" he asked. "At work, I mean. Your dedication to the Victoria Project was impressive." Sarah hesitated, uncertain about how much to reveal. "Partially. But also because I need the money. My grandmother, she needs heart surgery. The insurance doesn't cover it, and the waiting list." She let the phrase die in the air. She didn't want to sound like she was asking for help or favoritism. "I understand," James said simply, without pity or condescension, just understanding. The food arrived. Enormous burgers with juicy meat, melted cheese, crispy bacon, and caramelized onions, accompanied by golden French fries and pink lemonade served in glass jars. "The secret is the raspberry in the lemonade," explained James, pointing to the drink. "And the burger has a touch of chimichurri in the meat." Sarah tried a piece and couldn't contain a moan of approval. "This is amazing." James's smile widened, revealing a dimple in his right cheek that she had never noticed before. "I told you it was the best in New York." As the night progressed, the initial tension dissipated. They talked about movies. He had a secret predilection for old romantic comedies. Music. She loved jazz, he preferred classic rock. And books. They shared a love for Gabriel Garcia Marquez. "What was your childhood dream?" Sarah asked. Between one French fry and another, James's gaze was lost for a moment. "Building things. I wanted to be an engineer. Design bridges, skyscrapers." His face suddenly closed. "But that boy died when I received a financial calculator for my 15th birthday." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. The image of a teenager being forced to abandon his dreams due to family expectations was painfully sad. "And you?" he asked, shifting the focus. "What was your dream?" "You'll laugh. I promise I won't." Sarah hesitated, twirling the straw in the lemonade. "I wanted to open a coffee shop, one of those cozy ones, with books on the shelves and the smell of fresh bread in the morning. I still bake cakes and cookies on weekends." "It's therapeutic." To her surprise, James didn't laugh. His eyes shone with something that seemed like admiration. "Why didn't you follow that path?" "Life happened. After my parents died, I needed stability, a safe plan. Marketing seemed more viable." "You still make these cookies?" "Whenever I can. My grandmother says they're the best in the city, but I think that's family bias." He studied her for a moment, as if he were making an important decision. "I'd like to try them someday." The comment hung in the air, loaded with possibilities. It wasn't just about cookies, and they both knew it. When they left the diner, the night was pleasantly cool. They walked side by side on the sidewalk, their arms occasionally brushing, sending small sparks of electricity through Sarah's skin. "I can call an Uber for you," James offered, taking out his cell phone. "No need. I'll call one myself." Their gazes met under the yellowish light of a lamppost. For an instant, time seemed to freeze. Sarah realized he was closer now, his familiar cologne enveloping her again. There was a silent question in his eyes. a hesitation that completely contradicted the image of the confident and authoritarian CEO. "Sarah, Her cell phone rang, breaking the moment. It was Nana Rose. "I need to answer this," she murmured, moving slightly away. "Hello, Nana? Yes, I'm fine. I'm coming back now." "No, don't worry." When she hung up, the magic of the moment had dissipated. James had stepped back, both physically and emotionally, his expression returning to a polite courtesy. "Your Uber will arrive in 2 minutes," he said, showing the screen of his cell phone. "I already ordered it for you." "Thank you." She hesitated. "This was pleasant." A shy smile crossed his face. "Very." The car arrived, breaking the moment. Before Sarah got in, James lightly touched her arm. "Thank you for coming, for giving me a chance to show that I'm not just that person from the elevator." There was a vulnerability in his voice that made her heart tighten. "You were never just that person to me," she responded honestly. He seemed to want to say something more, but just nodded. Sarah got into the car and, as she moved away, observed through the rearview mirror the solitary figure of James standing on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets watching her leave. That night, Sarah took a long time to fall asleep. Her mind replayed every moment, every word, every shared look. Who was James Blackwood really? The ruthless CEO or the man who confessed lost dreams over artisanal burgers? And more importantly, what would happen when they met again at the office? The next day at the office was a disconcerting mixture of normality and surrealism. Sarah arrived earlier than usual, her stomach in knots, uncertain about how it would be to see James again after the previous night. When the elevator reached the 30th floor, she took a deep breath before exiting. The marketing department was already buzzing with activity, colleagues discussing deadlines, phones ringing, the smell of freshly brewed coffee permeating the air. Sarah, Megan, her team colleague, waved from her desk. "You won't believe it. The Iceman is calling a general meeting in 15 minutes. The entire department." Sarah felt her heart accelerate. Mr. Blackwood? "What's the reason?" Megan shrugged. "No one knows. But Kevin from finance said old Blackwood showed up at headquarters yesterday afternoon, and he didn't look happy. William Blackwood, James's father." Sarah remembered the mention James had made the night before, about his father and the imposed expectations. The main conference room was packed when Sarah arrived. She chose a discreet place in the back, deliberately avoiding the head where James would sit. She didn't trust her ability to maintain a neutral expression when facing him after the intimacy shared at the diner. At exactly 9 a.m., the door opened. James entered, impeccable in a charcoal suit, followed by 2 directors and by a figure Sarah immediately recognized from business magazines. William Blackwood, the patriarch. Even at 65, William radiated authority, shorter than his son, but with a presence that seemed to occupy the entire space. Carefully combed gray hair, sharp eyes that analyzed the room like a falcon studying prey. Sarah observed James discreetly. He had completely reassumed the CEO persona. Impassive face, rigid posture, direct and distant gaze. No trace of the man who had laughed heartily over burgers the night before. "Good morning, everyone," James began, his voice professional and cold. "I called this meeting to discuss the Victoria project. As you all know, this is our most prestigious venture at the moment, and expectations are high." His eyes scanned the room, passing over Sarah without any sign of recognition. She felt a tightness in her chest. Of course, what was she expecting? That he would recognize her, especially in front of his father and the entire company. "Sales from the last quarter were below projections," James continued. "The digital campaign didn't achieve the expected results. We need to understand what happened and correct it immediately." William Blackwood moved, and all eyes turned to him. There was something predatory in his presence, as if he were just waiting for the right moment to attack. "The board is concerned," intervened the patriarch, his harsh voice cutting through the air. "A lot of money was invested in this online campaign that my son so defended. Apparently, Instagram and Facebook don't sell luxury apartments as we expected." There was a murmur through the room. The tone of contempt was evident, a public criticism of James disguised as a professional observation. Sarah felt her blood boil. The campaign had been meticulously planned, based on solid research. The problem wasn't the strategy, but the timing. The launch had coincided with a political crisis that affected market confidence. Before she could contain herself, Sarah raised her hand. She saw James's eyes widen slightly. "Miss," William Blackwood asked, his eyebrow raised in irritation at the interruption. "Thompson." "Sarah Thompson, Senior Digital Marketing Analyst." James observed her with an expression that mixed surprise and, "Could it be concern?" "I have data that can explain the situation, sir," she continued, opening her laptop. The digital campaign hit all the engagement indicators predicted. The problem was the economic moment. Look here. Sarah projected on the screen a graph she had prepared weeks ago, showing the correlation between the project launch and the stock market drop. Our target audience, high-standard investors, reacted to the political instability. It wasn't the campaign, but the macroeconomic context that affected sales. A tense silence fell over the room. William Blackwood stared at her with an illegible expression. James maintained a neutral face, but Sarah noticed an almost imperceptible nod of approval in his eyes. "Interesting theory, Miss Thompson," William finally said. "But theories don't pay the bills." "We need results, not excuses." Sarah felt her face heat up. "They're not excuses, sir. They're data. And I have a proposal to reverse the situation." She quickly presented a contingency plan she had developed, a strategy focused on national buyers instead of international investors, exploring the concept of safe haven in times of crisis. When she finished, she felt shaky, certain she had committed professional suicide by confronting the feared William Blackwood. To her surprise, a slow smile formed on the patriarch's face, not of approval, but of interest. "Like a player recognizing a worthy adversary, James," he said, turning to his son. "Your team has backbone." "I like that." He turned to Sarah. "You have 1 week to prove your theory, Miss Thompson. If it works, congratulations. If it fails..." He let the threat hang in the air, implicit but clear. The meeting ended shortly after. While everyone was leaving, Sarah remained seated, trying to process what she had just done. She had challenged William Blackwood, and survived. For now, she felt a presence beside her and looked up. James was there organizing some papers, seemingly absorbed. But his voice, when he spoke, was low, just for her to hear. That was impressive and dangerous. "He was being unfair to you," she responded in the same tone. "And to our team." An almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "My office, 5 p.m. We need to discuss this new strategy and thoroughly." And then he moved away, reassuming the posture of the distant CEO in front of the other employees who were still in the room. The rest of the day passed in a frenzy of frantic work. Sarah gathered her team, explained the challenge, distributed tasks. She was determined not only to prove her point, but to show James and William what she was capable of. At 4:55 p.m., with her heart hammering against her chest, she took the elevator to the executive floor. She couldn't help but remember the moment when it all began, trapped in that same elevator with James. His secretary, a middle-aged woman with a perpetually serious expression, announced her. Sarah entered the immense office, impressed with the panoramic view of New York at dusk, the sun casting golden tones over the bay. James was standing by the window, his jacket discarded, the sleeves of his shirt rolled up to his elbows. He seemed lost in thought, his silhouette cut out against the orange sky. "You didn't have to do that," he said without turning. "Defend me in front of my father." "I wasn't defending," retried G. Continue edit. The elevator complete cultural adaptation to English. "I wasn't defending you," she replied, approaching. "I was defending the truth, our work." "My work?" He turned then, and Sarah saw again the man from the diner in his eyes, not the CEO. Even so, "Thank you. Few would have that courage. Your father is intimidating." A bitter smile crossed James's face. "You have no idea." He walked to the bar in the corner of the office. "Poured 2 glasses of red wine. I hope you don't mind." "I think we both need this after that meeting." Sarah accepted the glass, her fingers brushing against his during the transfer. Even that brief touch sent shivers down her arm. "About last night," she began. "It was real," he interrupted. "Whatever you're wondering, Sarah, it was real. It wasn't a strategy or a game. It was just me. For the first time in a long time." The naked honesty in his voice completely disarmed her. "And now?" she asked, uncertain about what she was really asking. "And now, after the confrontation with your father? And now after the diner? And now, with this undeniable attraction between us?" James took a step in her direction. "Now we have 2 options. We can pretend nothing happened, keep our relationship strictly professional, and I promise your career won't be affected in any way. Or, she whispered, her heart accelerating, "or we can explore this. Whatever it is." Carefully, with discretion but honestly, Sarah took a deep breath. The proposal was both tempting and terrifying. Starting something with James Blackwood could compromise everything she had worked for, put her grandmother's treatment at risk, her reputation. But looking into his eyes at that moment, illuminated by the setting sun, she saw something that touched her deeply. Loneliness. The same loneliness she had carried since losing her parents. The same feeling of always swimming against the current. "Not everything can be controlled and calculated, can it?" she said softly. A genuine smile spread across his face. "No, And perhaps that's the best part. He placed his glass on the table and, with a hesitation he would never show in a business meeting, touched her face, his fingers delicately tracing the line of her jaw. "I've been thinking about this since the elevator," he confessed. "About what?" "About how it would feel to touch you, without the panic, without the darkness. Just this." Sarah closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. There was something almost sacred in that moment, a shared vulnerability that went far beyond physical attraction. When their lips finally met, it wasn't explosive or desperate. It was gentle, exploratory, full of questions and possibilities. The taste of red wine, the warmth of his hands on her face, the slight aroma of his cologne mixed with the smell of paper and coffee from the office. As they pulled away, both were slightly breathless, as if they had run a long distance. "This complicates everything," Sarah murmured. "Completely," he agreed, but he was smiling. The intercom on the desk sounded, breaking the moment. "Mr. Blackwood, your father is on the phone." Line 2, James briefly closed his eyes, the weight of responsibilities visibly returning to his shoulders. "We need to be discreet," he said quietly. "For now, until we understand what this is." Sarah nodded. The world outside, with its hierarchies, expectations and judgments, still existed, regardless of what was happening between these four walls. "I can prepare the report for the new strategy and send it by email," she offered, reassuming the professional tone. James smiled, appreciating her understanding. "That would be great. And maybe we can discuss it in person. Tomorrow night, in another hidden diner?" His smile widened. "I was thinking of something different, actually. Something that involves flour, sugar, and your famous cookies." Sarah felt her face heat up. "You want me to cook for you?" If it's not asking too much. The implied intimacy in that invitation, being in her home, in her personal space, was both exciting and frightening. "My grandmother will be home," she warned. "Even better. I'd like to meet her." The sincerity in his eyes surprised her. This was not the behavior of a man looking for a quick adventure with a subordinate. "Be careful," she joked. "Nana Rose does an interrogation that would make your father seem like an amateur." James laughed, that genuine rich sound that she was beginning to adore. "I believe I can handle that." The phone continued ringing, ignored. For a moment, they remained there, suspended between two worlds. The corporate world with its rigid rules and expectations, and something new and unknown that was just beginning to form between them. "You should answer that," she finally said, pointing to the phone. James sighed. "I should." But before moving away, he pulled her in for one more kiss, this one firmer, more confident, like a promise. "Until tomorrow, Sarah Thompson. Until tomorrow, Jimmy." The look of mock indignation he gave her made her laugh as she left the office, feeling lighter than she had felt in years. Neither of them noticed William Blackwood observing discreetly from the adjacent meeting room, his calculating eyes recording every detail of the interaction. What began as an accident turned into complicity and laughter, secrets and even flour scattered around the kitchen. The line between boss and employee no longer existed, but the challenges were just beginning. A forbidden love, sweet and risky. If you're enjoying the story, leave your like and subscribe to follow every detail. Nana Rose watched with curiosity as Sarah moved around the small kitchen of the apartment with unusual energy. The smell of melted butter and chocolate filled the environment, while her granddaughter prepared cookie dough with the concentration of a surgeon in a delicate operation. "Since when do you make cookies on a Tuesday night?" asked the elderly woman, adjusting her reading glasses. Sarah felt her face heat up. "Just felt like it, Nana." The tone made it clear she wasn't convinced. "And does this feeling have anything to do with the fact that you've changed clothes 3 times since you arrived?" Sarah almost dropped the bowl of dough. "Nana!" Nana Rose laughed, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "I'm 75, not 175. I still recognize when my granddaughter is expecting someone." Sarah sighed, defeated. She had never been able to hide anything from her grandmother. "A colleague from work is coming over to discuss a project." "A colleague?" Nana Rose arched an eyebrow. "And does this colleague like cookies?" "Everyone likes cookies, Nana." "And does this colleague have a name?" Sarah hesitated. How to explain that the CEO of the company, the man everyone feared, would be in her living room in less than an hour? "James," she answered finally. "James Blackwood." Nana Rose's eyes widened. "The big boss? The one you said looked like he had swallowed a broomstick?" "I never said that," Sarah protested, although perhaps she had thought something similar before the elevator. The doorbell rang, making Sarah almost jump. "Already?" She looked at the clock, 7:45 p.m. He was early. "Nana, please," she implored, wiping her hands on the towel. "What?" Nana Rose smiled innocently. "I'll be an angel. The smile didn't inspire confidence. Sarah took a deep breath and went to open the door. James was there without the corporate suit, wearing dark jeans and a gray sweater that accentuated his broad shoulders. In his hands, a bouquet of white lilies and a bottle of wine. "Hi," he said, seeming almost shy. "I hope I'm not too early." "You're right on time," she replied, her heart racing at seeing him in her territory, so far from the controlled environment of the company. "Come in." Sarah's apartment was small but cozy. Books stacked on shelves, some plants, photographs in simple frames. A two-seater sofa with colorful pillows dominated the living room that integrated with the American kitchen. James entered, observing everything with genuine interest. "Your home is exactly as I imagined. Is that good or bad?" "Good. Very good." He smiled, handing her the flowers. "For you and your grandmother." The gesture touched her. It wasn't just politeness. There was true consideration, thank you. "They're beautiful. And the wine is for us. If it's appropriate, of course." A new voice entered the conversation. "Depends on the intentions that come with it." "Young man." Nana Rose had appeared at the kitchen door, small but imposing in her floral dress, perfectly coiffed white hair, sharp eyes studying the visitor. James turned, and Sarah noticed with surprise that he seemed genuinely nervous. The powerful CEO who closed million-dollar deals without blinking was intimidated by a 75-year-old lady. "Mrs. Rose," he greeted, extending his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you. Your granddaughter speaks very highly of you." Nana Rose accepted the handshake, but her gaze remained evaluative, curious. "She never mentioned you before yesterday." "Nana!" Sarah protested, mortified. James surprisingly laughed. "Fair enough. I don't think I gave many reasons to be mentioned. Positively." The honesty disarmed the elderly woman a bit. At least he's honest." She gestured to the sofa. "Sit down, young man. Let's see if my granddaughter's cookies will impress you as much as her reports seem to have impressed you." Sarah wished the floor would open and swallow her. James, however, seemed more relaxed now, a genuine smile on his face. "I doubt any report can compete with the smell coming from that kitchen." The night progressed in a surprisingly pleasant manner. After the initial interrogation, Nana Rose seemed to approve of James's presence, especially when he showed genuine interest in her stories about old New York, and offered to introduce her to a renowned cardiologist who was his personal friend. "It's not charity," he assured her, when Sarah tried to discreetly protest. "It's connection. People helping people. Something I'm trying to relearn." In the kitchen, while Sarah finished the cookies, James rolled up his sleeves and offered to help. His complete lack of skill with basic utensils was almost comical. "Have you never cooked anything in your life?" she asked, laughing as she watched him try to crack an egg. "We've had chefs for as long as I can remember," he admitted, with a hint of shame. "It's pathetic, I know. It's not pathetic. It's different," she approached, guiding his hands. "Here, hold it like this." The contact, the proximity, the warmth of his body so close to hers in the small kitchen. Sarah felt the air grow dense between them. James was looking at her as if she were the most fascinating thing he had ever seen. "You have flour on your face," he murmured, raising his hand to clean her cheek with his thumb. The lingering touch was more intimate than any kiss. "Are you two going to just stare at the dough or actually bake these cookies?" Nana Rose's voice broke the moment, making both of them move apart, like teenagers caught in the act. Later, sitting at the kitchen table with freshly baked cookies and cups of coffee, the conversation flowed with a naturalness that surprised Sarah. James told about his isolated childhood in the family mansion, the crushing expectations, the premature death of his mother that had transformed him. Sarah shared memories of her parents, the accident that had taken them, the years of struggle to finish her studies while working. They were two different worlds, but with similar pains. "You need to hear what happened at the meeting today," said Sarah, changing to a lighter tone. "We managed to convince 3 developers to adhere to the new strategy." "Details?" asked James, leaning forward with genuine interest. As Sarah enthusiastically explained the nuances of the revised campaign, Nana Rose observed the interaction with shrewd eyes. There was a lightness in her granddaughter that she hadn't seen in years, and in the young businessman, an attention and interest that went far beyond the professional. When the night came to an end, Nana Rose announced she would retire, but not before discreetly handing James a package with extra cookies for the road. The simple gesture seemed to touch him deeply. At the apartment door, away from her grandmother's eyes, Sarah and James stood face to face, a sweet tension hanging between them. "Your grandmother is incredible," he said, holding her hands. "Now I understand where your strength comes from. She liked you, which is rare. Very rare. And you?" His eyes sought hers. "Do you like me too?" The question, so direct and vulnerable, caught her off guard. It was surreal to see James Blackwood, the feared CEO, insecure about her feelings. "I'm beginning to think I do," she responded honestly. "And that scares me. Why?" "Because our worlds are very different." "Because you're my boss." "Because there are 1,000 reasons why this could go wrong." He moved closer, touching her face gently. "And what if we focused on the reasons it could go right?" The kiss that followed was different from the previous ones. More confident, deeper, loaded with promises and possibilities. His hands on her waist, pulling her closer. Her fingers in his hair, discovering its texture. Time seemed suspended as they explored this new connection, this unknown territory between them. When they separated, both were breathless. "This definitely could go right," she whispered, making him chuckle softly. "I completely agree." He moved away reluctantly. "I need to go. We have that presentation for the board tomorrow." "I know. I'll be prepared." Before leaving, James hesitated. "Sarah, whatever happens between us, I want you to know that your work, your career, your promotion, none of that depends on this connection. You already deserved all of that even before we got stuck in that elevator." The sincerity in his voice touched her deeply. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me." After he left, Sarah leaned against the closed door, a silly smile on her face, her heart light as she hadn't felt in years. "He's different from how you described him." Nana Rose's voice surprised her. The elderly woman was standing in the hallway, observing her with a thoughtful expression. "Very different," Sarah agreed. "There's pain in his eyes." "Old pain, I know." Nana Rose approached, touching her granddaughter's face with affection. "Be careful, my flower." "Not with him, but with the world around you. People in positions like his have many observers, and not all of them root for the good." Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind as she prepared for bed. Nana Rose was right. What was being born between them, however genuine it might be, would face obstacles that went far beyond their own fears and insecurities. The awakening was abrupt and cruel. Sarah's phone rang at 6 in the morning, waking her from a peaceful sleep for the first time in months. It was Megan, her team colleague, her voice trembling with nervousness. "Sarah, have you seen today's paper?" "Meg, it's 6 in the morning. What?" "Society column. Blackwood heir finds romance within the company. There's a photo of you with James, at the beach, kissing." Sarah's stomach dropped. She sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. "What? How?" "Some paparazzo must have followed you. The photo isn't clear, but you can recognize you perfectly." Megan hesitated. "Sarah, what's going on? Is it true?" Sarah hung up without answering. With trembling hands, she opened the newspaper app on her cell phone. There it was, a grainy but unmistakable photo of James and her on Coney Island Beach under the moonlight, sharing a kiss that seemed intensely intimate, even captured from a distance. The article speculated about the relationship between the billionaire CEO and an employee from the marketing department, questioning whether the recent prominence of Miss ST in the company was related to the clandestine romance. Before she could fully process it, her cell phone vibrated with a message from James. "Just saw it. I'm sorry. We'll deal with this together. Please don't come to the office today." "I'm coming to pick you up in an hour." Nana Rose appeared at the bedroom door, the printed newspaper in her hands, her face marked by concern. "Oh, my flower." Sarah felt tears burn her eyes. "Nana, The elderly woman sat on the bed beside her, placing a wrinkled hand over hers. "You don't need to explain anything. Just tell me, is he worth it?" The question was simple, but loaded with meaning. Sarah thought about the man she had met in the dark elevator, the smile he saved only for private moments, the vulnerability he had revealed only to her. "Yes," she answered honestly. "But it's complicated. Love always is, my child. The question is whether the complication is worth the joy." Before she could respond, the intercom rang. It was James, early. He entered the small apartment like a contained storm, impeccably dressed as always, but with deep shadows under his eyes and a visible tension in his shoulders. Upon seeing Nana Rose, he made a respectful bow. "Mrs. Rose, I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances." The elderly woman studied him with shrewd eyes. At least he has good manners." She turned to her granddaughter. "I'll make coffee. You have a lot to talk about." When they were alone in the small living room, James approached Sarah, taking her hands in his. "I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. It's not your fault." She pushed a strand of hair from her face. "What are we going to do now?" "First, we need to decide how to deal with this professionally." His tone was pragmatic, but gentle. "My father has already called 3 times this morning." "The board wants an extraordinary meeting." Sarah felt her stomach churn. "I'll resign." "It's the only clean solution." "No." The firmness in his voice surprised her. "I won't let you sacrifice your career for this. We've worked too hard to let gossip determine our future. But the conflict of interest, we can resolve that. I can transfer you to another department, under direct supervision of another director. No loss of salary or position." Sarah studied him, recognizing the strategist CEO everyone knew, but now using that skill to protect her. "And what about us?" she asked softly. James hesitated for the first time. "That depends on you." His eyes sought hers. "I would understand if you wanted to take a step back. The pressure will be immense, especially on you. People will talk, speculate. It will be unfair and cruel. Do you want to take a step back?" "No." The response was immediate, without hesitation. "But it's not me who will have their reputation questioned. It's not me who will be called an opportunist or worse. For me, I'll just be another CEO having an affair. For you, for me, I'll be the employee who slept with the boss to climb the career ladder," she completed, bitterly. "Even though you're the most brilliant professional I've ever met." The sincere compliment warmed her heart. "Even in the midst of the crisis, I need time," she said finally, "to think, to process." James nodded, understanding. "Take a few days off. I'll deal with the board and with my father." The mention of William Blackwood made Sarah shudder. The patriarch, notoriously rigid and traditional, would certainly not approve of his son's relationship with an employee without pedigree or connections. Nana Rose returned with a tray, bringing coffee and freshly baked cheese bread. "No one thinks right on an empty stomach," she declared, placing the tray on the coffee table. "Now eat, and then decide how to face the vultures." The comment drew a genuine smile from James, who accepted the offered cup with gratitude. "Your grandmother is extraordinary," he commented to Sarah. "And has excellent hearing too," retorted Nana Rose, sitting in the armchair. "So what's the plan?" James briefly explained the professional strategy. Temporary leave for Sarah, followed by a transfer to another department. As for the personal aspect, they would be discreet, but would not hide. They wouldn't give interviews or feed gossip, but they also wouldn't deny what they felt. "Seems sensible," the elderly woman agreed, before fixing James with a penetrating look. "But what happens when your father delivers an ultimatum?" "Because he will." The perspicacity of the question clearly surprised James. "How do you know he would do that?" Nana Rose smiled sadly. "Powerful men rarely accept losing control, son. And a son in love with someone he didn't choose is the definitive form of loss of control." The silence that followed confirmed that James had also possibility if I have to choose between his approval and Sarah, he said finally, his voice firm. "It won't be a difficult choice." The words, pronounced with such certainty, made Sarah's heart leap. This man, who had spent his entire life seeking his father's approval, was declaring that he would give it up for something that had barely begun between them. Nana Rose nodded, apparently satisfied. "Good, now finish your coffee. You," she pointed to James, "have a company to run and a father to face. And you," she turned to Sarah, "need to rest. Tomorrow's battles will be faced tomorrow." The elderly woman's simple wisdom brought a moment of normality to the extraordinary situation. When James left, promising to call later, Sarah felt a contradictory mixture of fear and hope. The path ahead would be difficult, perhaps impossible, but for the first time, she wasn't fighting alone. The following weeks were a whirlwind. As predicted, William Blackwood reacted with fury to the news. He called a board meeting to question his son's compromised objectivity. He proposed Sarah's immediate dismissal to preserve the company's integrity. James remained firm. He used concrete data to show the value of Sarah's work. He pointed out that transferring her to another department would eliminate any conflict of interest. And finally, he declared that his personal life was not subject to corporate approval. The battle behind the scenes was fierce, but James prevailed, partially because the Victoria Project numbers began to show the results Sarah had predicted. The success was undeniable, even to the most skeptical board members. Sarah returned to work after 2 weeks, now in the new business department. Looks and whispers followed her through the corridors, but she kept her head high. Her work would speak for itself, as it always had done. At night, away from corporate eyes, she and James slowly built something that seemed increasingly solid. Simple dinners at her apartment, with Nana Rose telling embarrassing stories from Sarah's childhood. Discreet walks through less-known parts of the city, moments of shared vulnerability, where both revealed fears and dreams. "I never thought I would find someone who would really see me," James confessed one night, as they observed the stars from the small terrace of Sarah's apartment. "Everyone has always seen the heir, the CEO, the son of William. Never just James." And I never thought I would find someone who valued my mind above all, she responded, intertwining her fingers with his. Someone who really listened to me. The connection between them deepened, transcending the improbable circumstances of their meeting. 3 months after the initial scandal, when the buzz was already beginning to diminish, a new crisis emerged. William Blackwood suffered a heart attack. James spent days at the hospital, rarely leaving his father's side. Sarah maintained a respectful distance, offering support from afar, understanding that her presence could cause more stress to the convalescent patriarch. On the night William was transferred from the ICU to a private room, James unexpectedly appeared at Sarah's door, his face marked by fatigue and something more, a new determination. "He asked to meet you," he said simply. "Your father?" Sarah couldn't hide her surprise. "Why?" James smiled slightly. He said he wanted to meet the woman who made his son defy the world for her. The meeting was tense but surprisingly cordial. William Blackwood, weakened by illness but still imposing, studied Sarah with calculating eyes that resembled his son's. "So you're the famous Sarah Thompson," he said, when they were alone in the hospital room, at his request. "Yes, sir," she responded, maintaining an upright posture. "Do you know why I asked to meet you? To evaluate if I'm worthy of your son, I imagine." An ironic smile touched the patriarch's lips. "No, to understand what you saw in him, beyond the name and fortune." The question caught her completely off guard. "I saw a man desperately trying to be who they expect him to be, while suffocating who he really is." Sarah surprised herself with her own honesty. "I saw someone who laughs as if he were discovering something new and wonderful. Someone who is afraid of disappointing others, especially you. Someone brilliant, kind, and much more human than he allows himself to show." William studied her for a long time before responding. "No one has ever talked about my son like that." His voice sounded almost thoughtful. "Like a person, not as an heir. Perhaps because few have really taken the trouble to know him beyond the surname." The old Blackwood nodded slowly. "My son is different since he met you, more firm. More confident in his own decisions, not just the ones I would approve of." He paused. "I don't know if I like that, but I suspect it's good for him." It was the closest to a blessing Sarah could hope for. "I'm not going to pretend I completely approve," William continued. "But I won't interfere anymore either. Whatever exists between you will have to find its own path." When she reported the conversation to James later, he remained silent for so long that Sarah feared she had said something wrong. "What is it?" she finally asked. "It's the first time I've done this." "Done what?" "Put my happiness above his approval." His eyes shone with emotion, and at that moment Sarah knew the ice had completely melted. 6 months later, the Victoria project, launched with Sarah's revised strategy, exceeded all projections. James was negotiating with his father to restructure the company, creating a new division focused on sustainable construction, a return to his original dream of building things that mattered. On a special evening, James took Sarah to a candlelit dinner on the rooftop of a small restaurant in Brooklyn Heights. The view of illuminated Manhattan stretched below them like a carpet of stars. "I have a proposal for you," he said, holding her hands across the table. Sarah's heart accelerated, thinking of rings and promises. "I'm opening a new division in the company," James continued. "Sustainable projects, socially responsible, innovative architecture combined with green technology. I'm leaving the CEO position to lead this personally." "You're resigning?" Sarah could hardly believe it. "I'm following my original dream, remember? The boy who wanted to build things, not just profit from them." His eyes shone with a passion she rarely saw in the corporate environment. "And where do I fit into this?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I want you to lead the marketing for this division. No hierarchical conflicts, working as equal partners." He hesitated. "And I also want you to consider another type of partnership." From his pocket, he took out not a ring, but a key. "I found a perfect space in Chelsea. Commercial ground floor, apartment upstairs. Perfect for a coffee shop with space for books." "Your dream, remember?" Sarah felt tears in her eyes. "You remembered. I remember everything about you." His smile was gentle. "I'm not asking you to abandon your career. I'm offering a chance for us to have both. Our professional dreams and us." A year later, Rose's Cafe opened its doors, with Nana Rose reigning supreme among the rustic wooden tables. In the mornings, Sarah baked cookies and breads while planning innovative campaigns for James's sustainable projects. In the afternoons, she supervised the cozy space where people leafed through books and savored her culinary creations. James divided his time between the new division of the construction company and helping at the cafe, always clumsy with dough, but incredibly skillful at making customers feel welcome. William Blackwood, after a health scare had softened his stance. He became a regular client of the cafe, muttering that he only went for the cheese bread, but everyone noticed how his eyes softened when seeing his son truly happy for the first time. On a quiet afternoon, while James helped a customer find a specific book and Nana Rose served coffee, Sarah observed the scene with an overflowing heart. Who would have thought that a broken elevator would be the beginning of everything? A fortuitous encounter in the darkness that had illuminated both lives. The man everyone called the ice statue now smiled openly, the corporate armor completely melted. And she, who had always prioritized safety and stability, had risked everything for something unexpected and transformative. The differences between their worlds hadn't disappeared, but they had built a solid bridge between them, made of mutual understanding, respect, and the kind of love that sees beyond appearances. Finding the truth hidden in the dark. "What are you thinking about?" asked James, approaching with that smile that still accelerated her heart. "About how unpredictable life is," she replied, accepting the gentle kiss he offered. "And about how grateful I am that elevator broke down," he laughed. That genuine laugh she had first heard in the darkness. "The best technical malfunction of my life." From the counter, Nana Rose observed with approval. True love, she thought, always finds a way, even if it's through a broken elevator. From an untouchable millionaire to a man willing to fight for love, he showed that even hearts of ice can melt. She, in turn, proved that a touch can change entire destinies. A story of surrender, vulnerability, and courage. Subscribe to the channel, like, and tell us in the comments if you believe in improbable loves.